Hi, I've just watched a Saturday night movie, literally finished it 5 minutes ago, and it was The Mercy. It's the story of Donald Crowhurst and the Golden Globe race, no relation to the film awards. In 1969, the Sunday Times offered a prize for a race to travel around the world non-stop by yacht, single-handedly. So sailors would spend almost an entire year at sea alone. And one of the entrants was a man called Donald Crowhurst, a small-town entrepreneur who developed a sea navigation device called the Navigator. And he wanted to use the race to publicise his invention, publicise his other innovations, and also, this isn't mentioned in the film, but it's very important, dig his family out of a very deep financial hole. Um, the question here is, how much do I spoil? This happened 50 years ago. It's a true story. I'll tell you what, it's almost like I don't plan these. The film isn't very good. There's a documentary called Deep Water, which you can find on YouTube, and which probably shouldn't be there, which is very, very good and tells Crowhurst's story extremely well. It gives you the version of the story that needed to be told, that does justice to the story and does justice to the man. So, if you don't want to know any more spoilers, the film isn't very good, watch that instead. We're now into spoilers. Crowhurst eventually goes insane and kills himself, having falsified logs that he was sailing around the world when in fact he wasn't, because his boat wasn't up to scratch, he wasn't an experienced enough sailor, and he was just going round and round in circles in the South Atlantic, because he knew if he tried going into the Southern Ocean, he would definitely die. So the choice was between death or shame and bankruptcy. And he had a family, and they were depending on him. There was so much expectation. He was being pushed so much as this plucky, can-do amateur, with the blitz spirit and all that. He had no choice, so he went crazy. It's a deeply tragic story, and the film completely bollockses it up. The lead is played by Colin Firth, and he's wrong for it. He's too Colin Firth. He's too much like himself. There's no sense of desperation in Crowhurst, so when his mental state really starts to slide later in the film, it's very abrupt. The tone of the script is far too lumpy. You're never given a sense that this is an act of desperation until you're literally being told that, until Crowhurst is hallucinating horses in his wake behind his trimaran. So it's never convincing. The other issue, and it's a fairly major one, is that it keeps cutting between Crowhurst's experience at sea and what's going on back on land in Teignmouth in Devon, where Crowhurst was from. So we see what's life like for his family, his press agent, his financier, who was a caravan manufacturer, because you go where the money is. And it just undermines the tone. You should be sticking with Crowhurst for the whole movie. Not that I'm playing Saturday Morning Film Critic, which is the critic's version of Monday Morning Quarterback, but that's not how you tell this story. The story is Crowhurst, what he's hearing from land, and his story. You bookend it with what's happening on the mainland, but you stay with Crowhurst. He's the story. And by repeatedly cutting back on land and not really telling us anything other than Crowhurst has sent us this message, the result is you're not being told anything especially new, anything that particularly enhances the way the story's being told. All you're doing is making it much more conventional. This needs an eccentric, original style of filmmaking. It's directed by James Marsh. His previous film was The Theory of Everything, which was terrible. Terrible! But he did do Man on Wire, the documentary, which was extremely good and had a much more experimental style to it in terms of the way it was telling that particular story. So Marsh's style as a director has now become very flat and very ironed out. He's casting big stars rather than people who are going to get the great performances. And the result is just really a load of old mush that fails to do justice to the story, but I think even worse, it fails to do justice to the man. It's very hard not to feel sorry for Crowhurst. He was pushed into a situation through his own ambition, his own vanity, a society that lauded the garden shed amateur. To think that he could do this backed him into a corner where he had no other option, and the result was shame, embarrassment for his family, and his own madness and sad, lonely death at sea. He deserves better than this.